Hello and thanks for watching Best Maths Tutors. We're continuing to go through the Edexcel Foundation Tier Paper 1 from November 2018, and this is question 7. So this is a question where we've got a pictogram and it's representing the number of apple trees, cherry trees and pear trees and plum trees that are in an orchard. So what we've got is this information that we've got 4 trees represented by a square. So if we're told we've got 30 trees in the orchard, we've got to complete the pictogram. So in order to do this, we'll need to work out how many of each tree we've got. We can see that since each square is worth 4, for the apple trees we've got 4 plus 4 plus 4, so we've got 12 apple trees. And then if we look at cherry trees, one whole square represents 4 trees, and then we can see that what we've done is we've taken one of the squares and we've divided it into 4, and then what we've got is one of these smaller parts of it. So because one of the big squares represents 4, then one of the smaller squares there will just represent 1. So there we've got 4 plus 1, so we've actually got 5 cherry trees. We can see for the pear trees, again we've got a big square, so that's going to be 4. And we've got half of a big square, or 2 of these smaller squares, so that's going to represent 2 there, so that's 6. And if we add all those up, we can see that we've got 17, and then plus the 6 is 23. So currently the apple plus the cherry plus the pear trees is 23, found by adding up the 12, the 5 and the 6. So in order to find out how many plum trees we've got, what we've got to do is take that away from 30. So if we do that, 30 minus 23 will give us 7. And so we need to represent 7 trees on our graph. So we can see that if we do one full square, one full big square, that's going to be 4. And then we need to represent the remaining 3. So we need to have another shape now that's going to represent just the 3 trees. So we can see that if we did that, since one of these smaller squares is represented to 1, then 3 of them will represent 3. So we can do that by having a shape like that, which represents 3 trees. So that's equal to 7. So that's question 7 completed. Looking now at question 8, what we've got is we've got a grid. And so on this grid we've got it labelled with the X and Y coordinates, and first thing we've got to do is write down the coordinates of point A. So here's point A, this cross on our grid, and when we're writing down a coordinate we always write down the X value first and then the Y value. So we can see that the X value for this point A is -2, so what we can do, we can put that in the space provided. And then the Y value for that point is -1, so we can add that in there. So we can see that we've got the Y value by projecting across there to -1, and the X value projecting up to the horizontal axis. For part B, we've got to now mark a cross on the grid with this coordinate, which is 2, 3. So again, the first number is the X value, and the second number is the Y value. So we can see that we need to go across to 2 for the X, and then we need to go up to 3 for the Y. So that's going to put us there for our point B, and we've got to label it as well B. That's that one done. And now we've got to, finally for this question, we've got to draw the line with the equation x equals -4. So what that means is a line where every point on that line has an x coordinate that is -4. And if in fact we drew a vertical line here like this, we can see that every point on that has got an x coordinate of -4. So looking at this point here, for example, we can see the x coordinate for that is -4. Any point on the line, the x coordinate for this point here, for example, still -4. So a line with this equation is actually a vertical line going through x is equal to -4. Moving on to question 9, what we've got now is a substitution question. So we've got to replace the value of g here by 9 and the value of h by 4. And what we need to know is that when we've got a number and a letter next to each other, it actually means that we're multiplying them together. So what we're going to do is we're going to say 2 times the 9, which is the value of g. So just replacing the g by 9, and then plus 3 times the value of h, which is 4. So we're going to work out the 2 times 9 first, and that's going to be 18. And we're going to do all the multiplications first because it's by the laws of BIDMAS, we've got to do our multiplication, which is what the M stands for, before we do any addition. So before we do the add, we've actually got to work out what 3 times 4 is. So that's going to be 12. And then when we add them together, 18 plus 12 gives us 30. So that's our answer. For question 10, we've got to write down 2 prime numbers which have a sum of 32. So a prime number is a number which can only be divided by itself and 1. And they've got to have a sum of 32. So what a sum is another way of saying they've got to add. So sum is another word for adding. So if we couldn't think of the answer straight away, what we might want to do is have a method for doing it, which would involve writing down all the prime numbers and then seeing which ones we could add to make 32. So I'm going to start a list of prime numbers, and the first prime number is actually 2. 1 doesn't count as a prime number, so we have to start on 2. The next prime number is 3, because 3 and 1 are the only numbers that will divide into itself. If we go to 4, now 4 isn't a prime number because 4 can be divided by 4, 2 and 1. So the next prime number is 5. And if we continue, we can see 6 wouldn't be a prime number. In fact, the only even prime number is 2. So the next one is actually 7. 9 isn't a prime number because that can be divided by 3. So the next one is 11, followed by 13. 15 isn't a prime number because 15 can be divided by 5 and 3, as well as itself and 1. So the next prime number is 17. Then we've got 19. And if we keep going, we've got 23, 29 and 31. So you could just check those and see whether you think they're right or not. So what we're going to do then is pick 2 of these numbers which will add to make the 32. So the easiest ones I can see is if we started with 3 as our first number. 3 plus 29 will give us 32. So there may be other alternatives on there. Let me just have a look if I can just spot any straight away. So as well as that, we could have actually put down 13 and 19 because 13 plus 19 also add to make 32. So all we're asked to do is write down any 2 prime numbers that will have a sum of 32. So I'm going to go for 3 and 29. But any 2 would suffice for this answer. So I hope it's been helpful to you, and if it has, please consider subscribing to our channel and giving our video a thumbs up and watching the rest of our videos on this paper because we will be covering all the questions.